if you can remember. Do you remember like Heston Blumenthal was coming out and people like that? And we were quite trendy at the time, doing like really into food. And someone was coming into our premises and they were going, what percentage are your sausages? And it was really sort of a real buzzword. And I didn't know that it was a bit of a trick question. Of course, they're 100% pork, right? So in my head, they're 100% pork. But then when you look at the labels, it's 80% because you put pork in, rusk in, water in, the mixture. So naively, we just put 80% on the label. And the guy turned around and walked out the shop. And he said, and as he left, I only buy these sausages from this place that are 100% pork. And he walked out. And I realised he didn't actually understand what it meant. So when you talk about percentages, it's about percentage of meat content in the sausage, of what of that meat is their meat. It's like things like 50, I think you can have like certain types of offal don't class, but certain types do. And you can have 60% pork sausages, but then they slip in 20% everything else. So we literally just mince whole cuts of pork. So the answer is both. It's 100% pork, but also it's actually about 80% because you've just seen what I put in. So you know it's not true. So anyone who says I only eat 100% pork sausages, you're eating minced pork in skins then, because that's what that really is. Do you know what I mean? And that's actually a really interesting point, because supermarkets really have dictated to us what we know about foods now. I used to sell a lot of minced beef, and I had one person bring a load back because it wasn't red enough. And, you know, this is red, I'm bringing it back. All meat should be red, and actually it's because of the gases in the packaging, and that's changed a little bit over the years. So, and in fact, when you hang beef, it usually goes dark or black, even. So, it's a really interesting question, and actually not a lot of people realise. So, who here, it's slightly off topic, but it's relevant. But who here has ever bought a Cox apple? Or Maris Piper potato?
Yeah.
Or can anyone else think of anything else that's a buzzword? Fruit, vegetable, meat, Aberdeen Angus, beef? All these, they're just buzzwords. What it should say is, these are what supermarkets can get hold of, store, and sell to you to make the biggest profit they possibly can. If you've ever been to like a farmer's market or a butcher's or anything like that, you'll notice in those places, they do have random varieties of apples. Or they'll have a weird potato kind. It'll be the best you've ever had. Or a randomly made loaf of bread with a wheat we don't know. And it's not that we don't know, it's just that we're just in this whole sort of cycle of meats, fruits, vegetables that are almost dictated to us. Do you know what I mean? Do you feel that way yourselves, or have you ever thought about it? Or that's the thing. It's one of those things where we're not used to having to think about what goes into our food. And it's one of those things that I actually spend my entire life doing it. And so it's very difficult for me to sort of not think about it. But one of the biggest learning curves when I started in business, nearly 20 years ago, was realising that actually nobody knows these things. And it's not readily available, and it's actually quite secret. I saw, here's these Facebook memes, all right, and I saw a Facebook meme the other day saying, companies brag that their chicken contains 100% chicken. This is 100% chicken nugget, or 100% this, or 100%. And it's now a brag because what's happened is they've pulled the level down so far to what they could get away with, and now they're suddenly actually giving you a whole cut of meat. They're like, you're lucky, you know, and that's why it costs twice as much. You know, I mean, years ago, you probably noticed if you ever bought pork, it might be really watery. Have you ever had that? Like a cut of roast pork, roasted in the oven, white comes out of it? They used to just
bacon does that a lot as well.
Okay, so there's two things going on there. So the pork is absolutely inexcusable. They literally use some sort of sugar, salt, saline solution, and they just inject the meat to make it weigh more. That's it. And what you're seeing is that's just cooking out. It's actually cooking the pork from the inside. You imagine putting water inside a roast joint. It's going to fluffy and make it. And in fact, before we started doing our own pigs, I didn't actually like pork, really. If you said, oh, I lovely roast pork, I'd be, oh, that's all right, but not fussed. And then we were doing our own pigs, and I was like, oh my God, this is, crackling that snaps, and fat and flavour and everything. So, and that goes across the board. I mean, chicken's another one that's always pumped full of stuff. So, you see, I'm trying to disguise how boring this this part of the sausage making is, what you're going to do, you're just going to keep stirring it.
So what would be suspicious sausage? So what level of percentage would you not want?
Well, it really depends, because obviously there's people on a budget. So if you're like, if what your food is important to you and you can afford to, buy the best you can, go to a butcher's and ask them, quiz them, ask them what's in it. Because actually the labelling can be quite misleading. So I don't really know the answer to that one, because it's such a grey area. I would say just don't buy sausages from the supermarket. That's pretty much what I'd say. I mean, obviously from me, brilliant, but just someone like, if you can't get to me or can't buy online or something, someone like me, because they're going to make it this way. There's no viable sense to do it any other way as a small producer, because that doesn't work for you either. So more often than not, a butcher will be getting this meat when they're cutting, like, so if I break down a side of pork, I will get inevitable trimmings, like say you'll miss a bit, or there'll be a wonky bit, you just take it off and you have like a pile ready for sausages. And then you look at it and go, does it need a bit more fat or a bit less fat or whatever, and you manipulate the mix to sort of look like for example here, if you can see, it's got some white, but not much. It's actually quite pinky. So it's got a lot of actual meat in it and not very much fat. So when you have these stuffed into casings and you cook them, your sausages aren't going to cook away very much either. So you might have bought sausages in the past that end up like these little weird shrunken in cases. And that, you know, don't get me wrong, small production like myself can be slightly inconsistent, because we are small, and one week my pig might be really fat and the next week it might not be as fat. And
so if you had a lean sausage, how would you make that differently?
So I wouldn't really make it a lot differently if I wanted to make it lean.
Yeah.
But if I didn't want it to be lean, I would make sure I added some fat with it. Water doesn't really make a difference. What we do with the water is binding it. And if you keep doing this, like I was saying with like chorizo, eventually the proteins will release in the meat and it will become a bit sticky. So if you had like some businesses have like a bowl chopping machine, and it like mixes it till it's like almost like a solid mass. Almost, it wouldn't sort of fall apart like this. It'd be like a lump. And the water's really only done to activate that sticking together process, really, to want from less complicated way. But if you wanted lean sausages, you can do that. You can make lean sausages, and people do sometimes make lean sausages. More often than not, though, the problem is they're actually just not as tasty. And a lot of people, I've made leaner sausages by demand, and people have been like, don't like them. And they can be dry. They might be fine if you're making like something Italian or like a pot roast, or you can make a sausage casserole or something like that with loads of stew around it, kind of thing. But as a rule, if you're having sausages in the way that most people do, which is like sausage and mash or eggs and bacon sausage, that kind of thing, a leaner sausage actually just, in my opinion, just isn't very good. It's not the same thing. But if you make it too fat, like I said, it could shrink, and you get that sort of. It's quite nice for like the snap quality to the skin. Sometimes it can be quite nice, and if you're not bothered by it shrinking. But yeah, it's finding that happy in between where you've got fat evenly through it, but also if you've got things like shoulder, which is a lot of the time what I put in here, there's a lot of what I call like, it's not hidden fat. Have you ever had like lamb that looks lean and there's just tons of fat after you've cooked it, right? Some parts of the pig will be more like that. So you'd be like, well, I think it's lean meat, and it's actually not as lean as like there's like a hand part of the shoulder, which is quite lean. So it's like you get like two halves of the shoulder, one's where the hand sort of sticks out, and the other's the collar, which might be known more like a ribeye or a collar, neck fillet, sometimes people call it, that kind of thing. That's fattier, and that's a bit more sort of set. Whereas if you use the other half of the shoulder, that can be quite lean, and that's when I would add some fat on, and things like that, really.
You said earlier that it's not the casing that makes it gluten-free or whatever. How would you make those gluten-free?
So, it's a bit like I was saying earlier. You were saying like the chorizo, salami kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You could get minced pork and your favourite seasonings, so say garlic, salt, pepper, maybe paprika, whole peppercorns, really go to town on it. Then you could add some of this bacon salt. So that's one way you can do it. There is actually the commercial mix that I've got. You can buy celiac versions of those. I think it uses soya as a flour. You might know more than me.
When we did them before, we bought packet mixes that you can get.
That's it.
Gluten-free version.
Most of the time, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it's moved on, but in my day when I made them, it was a bit like people were like, I'd rather just not have sausages because these just aren't very good. So the ones we made weren't that popular. But if you to make them more like a cured sausage, that's the way around I've got it. So if you find that, if you go to the supermarket now, most air-dried chorizo hoops will be gluten-free. Anyway, that's a standard thing, because they literally just contain the bacon salt, which is like a nitrate, and salt, sugar, usually, commercially made. Sometimes there's an enzyme which is put into the meats to eat the bad bacteria stimulated by eating sugars. So you might put in like glucose, or traditionally it'd be red wine. You'd pour red wine into it for the good bacteria to eat. And the good bacteria would overtake the bad, and that's one of the reasons it sort of pushes out the bad bacteria, it cures it and keeps it longer. But if you followed that recipe process like this, and just put them in your fridge for a week or two, they'd be fine as sausages, and they wouldn't ferment too quickly. It can be really good, it can be really, but sometimes they can be really like intense. Because like sometimes you can make them with the garlic, pepper and things like that, and you go, oh my god, it blows your face up. So you have to sort of try and work on what feels right, you know. So yeah, but you can. In fact, if you follow my YouTube at Cracky Yolks, I this week, we're actually building a brand new website so you can buy our meats online and have it delivered. And I've been making products. The aim is to have a recipe or something on YouTube for every single thing we sell that I've made and done. So over the years I've worked in restaurants, I've had the shop, I've been a butcher, I've still got the farm, I do all these things. And you can buy, have you ever been to a butcher's and bought their burgers?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And they're often really, and I'm not saying it's bad for you, I've sold them in the past because it's all that was available, but they're made using similar mixtures to this, which is fine, but sometimes they have a bit too much colour in them, people don't like it. Sometimes they're really flat pressed, and they're sort of bound together with the mixtures. But if you go to a restaurant and have a burger or something like that, they're often really different, they're grainier, deeper, juicier. And I thought to myself, well, there's got to be a way around it. And I thought, how can I make it gluten-free? And how can I make it awesome and amazing? So I thought to myself, what I did it some of my lamb, because I haven't got any of my own beef yet. I buy the beef in a minute. And I got some minced lamb. And I melted some butter first. I melted butter. And then I got 2 eggs, butter, fresh garlic, salt and pepper. And I used the butter as a binder. So I poured in the melted butter and mixed it like this. And then I pressed them into little balls like that, flat, and I tried to make it as dry as I could, if you like. And then I actually put them on a tray with greaseproof in the fridge, and they set hard. And then the next day we had a barbecue, and I cooked them over fire, like a fire pit, and they held. And they held really, really well, and they were proper burgers. So that's another thing. I'm thinking, like, if you wanted to make sausages, you could probably follow a recipe a bit like that too. It might work. It's incredibly calorific and it's very buttery. You've got to love a bit of butter, but who doesn't, eh? Being the trim man that I am, I don't eat much butter, but we all love a bit. So that's another thing you could do. It's quite a cool tip, and I've taken it from me. It actually works, and you can look at the recipe online. It's one of those, bish bash bosh kind of recipes. It's not in detail, but message me if you want anything, and I can just tell you what it is.
So you put fresh herbs into your mixture. You use rye, but
Usually.
the other weekend I went to a food festival,
Yeah.
a local one, and it was a game dealer, and he was selling unusual types of sausages I've never heard of, like duck, ginger, and rhubarb.
Yeah.
And I wondered if that was a mix that he bought online, or would he have put in fresh?
It depends. Were they fresh sausages?
No, they were frozen.
There you go. So you could put whatever you like in a sausage if you're going to freeze it straight away. You don't give it the chance to ferment and spoil. So you could go home, find your duck, rhubarb and ginger, whatever you like, mix it in, make the sausages, and then freeze them. One thing that it's hard to do with random ingredients is get the right sort of consistency. So you're better off giving it a couple more times for the mincer after you've added the ingredients, because sometimes putting different ingredients into a sausage can affect, as you probably all agree, texture is a massive part of eating. And actually, so if you take the flavour away from it, the next best thing is probably texture. In fact, most of the things I love and don't love is because of the texture. like mushrooms when I was a kid, couldn't stand them, you know, things like that. So if you were to do that at home, you can put whatever you like in them, but you must freeze them or experiment. You might find if it's rhubarb and ginger, it might be rhubarb and ginger jam, and that might act as a natural preservative, and it might take away from that fermentation process. It might work. So there's two things you can do really: is make it, freeze it, make it, and leave it, and see which one works best. But just go with your nose, because if it smells like alcohol, you know you're sort of onto a loser.
Have you ever made anything that's like put different ingredients in and it's just come out horrible?
Actually no. On my website, you can. No, as a rule, I've done a few things and they usually work out well. But a lot of the time, it's sort of. I don't know. Like when I was, I had an executive. Does anyone know the pub at Lichborough? Have you ever heard of the pub at Lichborough? It's a village near here. Our family owned it for years, and we used to have a restaurant there, and I used to run it. And more often than not, a sausage flavour would be inspired by like a dish. So like, you know, if you go to a restaurant and you go, oh my god, like, you know, duck and like orange, for example, or rhubarb and ginger, that kind of. That's the kind of thing I'd eat at a restaurant or serve at a restaurant and go, do you know what, those flavours really, really work. And then I'd try it in the sausage, but I'd also try and manipulate it to not get the fermentation problem and things like that. So what you can do, there's a half trick to doing it as well. You can get a sausage base mix that's a bit like that, or you can get stuff called safe preserve. I think it's supposed to say safe preserve, but the label always smudges. And thank you, I've got one fan in the audience. And you can use that as a bit like a preservative. You can sprinkle in on just plain pork, and that can sometimes work. But generally, I find that you can get this base mixture, which is like a plain pork sausage. If you can cheat, you can go, right, plain pork sausage mix, add thyme, rosemary, onion, rhubarb, whatever you like. But quite often, I stick up, if I can, with the dried ingredients just because of the fermentation problem. But because I don't really sell many sausages from frozen, so. But yeah.
What you mentioned at Lichborough,
Yeah.
is it the Red Lion?
That's it, yeah.
I drive through there on
Yeah.
the way to Castle Ashby.
But that's the one, yeah. So
Is that
Cannons Ashby.
Cannons Ashby, yeah.
Yeah, that's
is
it.
that where you...
Yeah, for years. So
sausages?
no. So the pub's now closed, as most are. But I had children, and I sort of stepped back slightly from the pub. And my mother-in-law, father-in-law owned the pub, and they really wanted to. They sort of took it on, and I sort of stepped back from the restaurant side of things around then. I still really enjoy the restaurant side of things. That's why I do the cooking on YouTube and stuff like that. So I just, you know, with our website coming up and things, it's one of those. I think it's important that if you've ever been to a farm shop, or if you've ever been on YouTube or even on TikTok or anything, there's people that cook, or there's people that butcher, or there's people that farm, and I actually do all three. And I also used to do stand-up comedy, so I also do four, which I know you don't really believe because that's a joke. But I always like doing things in public and talking and stuff like that. So I'm trying to sort of bring it all together, really. So as you can see here, that's looking about that. Can you see? It's a nice...
Would there be much difference if it was beef?
Pardon?
Would there be much difference if it was beef?
No, so the beef, no, but beef doesn't hold... beef holds water, I think, a bit better. So if you ever had like a proper frankfurter, they're often beef, and they're made like with ice cubes because they're really sort of pasted up. But like the water content might vary slightly. It might drain differently. But no, not really. You can very easily make any... If you can buy meat as a lump, you can make sausages out of it. So I used to do game dealing a long time ago, and I used to make venison sausages, which are really quite easy, but again, very, very lean. So you have to be careful. You don't go too lean on them, otherwise they do just get a bit like chewy. But yeah, I mean, I've done beef, lamb, and we do sometimes do goat sausages, which are really popular. Goat sausage is actually quite a good in route to goat, because most people haven't tried goat, but people are quite happy to have a go at a sausage.
Yeah.
You know, so another innuendo for you there. Anyway, so right. So the next thing we would do is we have this wonderful contraption. Now this is nearly as old as me, this thing, and it's definitely as worn out as I am. So have a handle on there. Sounds like me when I get up in the morning. This goes on the end. This is effectively pushing the sausage through. Okay? It's not that exciting, really. And then I go on. All the way here, I was dreading like forgetting like that. A bit of disaster, wouldn't it? Hi, I'm Ben here. Oh, there we go. So then I do that. Then we have the spout. Here, this is where the sausage meat will come out of. And that goes on this end. Right.
Is this just a bigger version than what I can get from my KitchenAid mixer?
Yeah, this is actually really basic. This machine, we sort of haven't really changed the way we make sausages since I started. If you get them for your kitchen, they often have like a mincer attachment with a sausage on the end. So you sort of have the mincer here and like a little nozzle thing on the end of the mincer. So you would do this, you'd do this process, put all this into your mincer, attach your nozzle, then do your hand turning to make your sausages at home. And actually, if you go on anything like Amazon or something like that, actually they're really reasonable. So you can look back on this on the live feed, or I'll be putting this up, some of this up on YouTube, on my YouTube channel.
What is your YouTube channel?
At Cracking Yolks. And I think it might be called Cracking Yolks at Radmore Farm. I forget which one it's called, but it's Cracking Yolks for the YouTube. Radmore Farm. REDMORE. So Cracking Yolks is a podcast I've started, but I've used the handle for YouTube as well, so it's all sort of linked. But my business is actually Radmore Farm, Radmore Farm Shop.
Catering.
That's it.
Because we were hoping you weren't open.
No. We do it as a pop-up. So do you see my sign, the pop-up butchery sign? So we do the pop-up butchery sometimes, but I don't really open much. It's mainly deliveries I do. So we spoon feed it in. See, Catherine's, that's my sister-in-law. Catherine, that's her business. I'm married to her sister, Victoria. So you know where I am. That's where I am. If you've ever seen any animals outside there, they're mine.
Not the chickens that are just staying for the week, no?
Not the chickens that are staying for the week, although a few do go missing. Enjoy your sausages.
The cats make good sausages.
Cats, only in China. I'm here all week. It's Korea. Not, how do I know these things? So it's important to stuff these through, but you've also sort of got to slap your meat a bit. Another one for you. Make sure there's no air in there. If there's any air in there, the sausage will fly off at the end and it'll just go off everywhere. Another one. Just keeping count. There we go.
So is the meal organic?
No. So that's another good question. Organic is another buzzword. So what organic means to most people is well-reared, happy animals, good quality and all those things, which a lot of the time that umbrella does fall underneath it as well, but for a lot of the time it just refers to the fact they've been fed on organic feed.
So they've not been...
Technically they could be no different to a normally farmed animal, and even then the pesticides could still exist, like organic pesticides on crops, for example, things like that. So usually like organic chicken is its own bracket, same as free range, but like, for example, like my meat, if I bought in organic feed, that would basically be the same thing. It's just the feed a lot of the time. Well, a lot of the reason it puts people off going organic is like a withdrawal period on your fields and things like that. So if I said, well, I'm going to go organic for my lambs, like who are out grazing everywhere, you need to have like the field rested for an X amount of years, registered with the board, they all take the money, of course, which is another real problem. So you get these certification schemes like Red Tractor, which isn't organic, but when you're a small producer like myself, that's too large for us, so we can't, it's not viable for those schemes. And all they really are is an assurance. So I can assure you myself, whereas if you're a massive company, you can't often speak to the owner, so if Red Tractor does it for you. It's a bit like that with organic, it's got like an umbrella of trust about it. And the quality is very good, but a lot of people are actually coming off being organic farms because the feed prices are so high, they feel they can still farm, but the product's more viable because it can go to more places. A lot of butchers just won't buy organic meat because it just costs too much. And a lot of people are quite happy to take the fact that, like for example, if someone comes to my farm, sees my animals, enjoys the meats, can talk to me or see on our YouTube channel about how they're farmed, they're outdoors and all these things. People are like, well, that's what I want. I'm not really that bothered by the organic feed. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people go, that's what I want for my meat. That's what I think organic means. And in some cases it does, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's any different to someone else is farming it,
No,
apart
I'm
from the
bothered
feed.
by the hormones that you're giving the animals.
Yeah, so there's no actual hormone treatments or anything given to animals in this country. That's actually illegal. So that's another myth. So hormone treatments this is why a lot of people are talking about don't buy this stuff in from Australia, like the lamb from Australia, and the beef from America, because they do that. Anyone remember capons? You have the big chickens for Christmas? Caponizing was a hormone-induced treatment, and that's been banned, so you can't buy capons anymore. But at Christmas, from me, you can buy cockerels. Done in a traditional way. There you go. But not capons. So the actual hormones in meats, it's not a thing. If you buy British meats, it's not a thing. That's really the important thing. Buying I talk about this on my first podcast, actually, if you want to go and download it. On the podcast, I actually mentioned about this because supermarkets are a lot of the problem. They've sort of fed us, for a better word, just wrong information without telling us lies. You don't realise what is actually going on until you look. And on the podcast, I was talking about this. And what was it? That was it. Years ago. Do you remember when battery eggs got banned?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it? 2012, I guess, or something like that. Yeah. So in this country, overnight, battery eggs got banned, and rightly so. I don't agree with battery eggs. But what happened was, instead of that then becoming the market that was only available in this country, so that every supermarket or business went, right, all I can buy now is 3 to a cage, which was the minimum standard, or free range, farmers overnight got less money for their produce, and it cost them a lot more to create the product. And then what actually happened was every supermarket went, well, I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to buy it from abroad instead, but their standards are lower than that anyway. So a lot of the time, if we don't buy British food, if you buy Danish bacon or something like that, you're buying something that's produced in a way that's one of their higher welfares is probably something we're not even half allowed to do in this country. The welfare standards in this country are mega. And so what happens is you can buy it from abroad at a fraction of the price because everything's reared in a box, and they can just absolutely smash them out. And this battery hen thing was the absolute example of that. These farmers here produced these eggs, and then what actually happened was they went, well, we want to sell eggs for £1 a box. Can't do that with English eggs. Just go buy them from Spain then. And Spain went, we're not going to do it. What are you going to do? We won't change our rules. Don't care. And that's the problem. We care a lot here, and a lot of farmers in this country actually really care. But a lot of the time, you end up losing out by doing the right thing. It's a real tough one. And I don't really know the answer. Apart from trying to show everybody that, it's good stuff. It's worth doing, Do you see what I mean?
She said she bought beef cattle out from the field.
Yeah, they're my sister-in-law, so they have their own beef cattle, so they do their own thing. They fatten theirs and take them elsewhere, and they actually haven't had any ready for like a year. So I actually, have you heard of, there's a little abattoir called Joseph Morris at South Kilworth, and who said yes, yeah. So they buy my spare pigs, and they do all of our abattoir slaughtering. So I would then go to them and buy any beef cuts from them, because they buy them from local farms like me. So if we haven't got any beef available, I will go to them and buy it from them, because we do a lot of,
So it's all local.
Absolutely, and that's the most important thing, because it's very, very, very important. If I can't produce it myself, either I practice what I preach, because that's how I feel about it. And how are the people going to listen to me and do it if I can't even do it myself? And that's how I've always thought about that. So,
How many pigs do you have?
me, not that many. I have about 10 breeding sows. At the moment, I've got a litter of 6, 13, 10, 11, 7, and an 8. Something like that. And they're all sort of varying sizes.
Is there a particular breed that's best?
The best is the wrong way of looking at it, because actually if you want fat, there's loads of fat ones, but if you want lean ones, there's loads of lean ones. What I actually did is we've got Hampshire crosses, that's what they're called. So if you ever see like a saddleback pig, it's got like a white, it's black with a white band around its shoulders. We did that cross with a commercial pig, because I always wanted a good layer of fat, big, strong, healthy pigs. When you buy meat from a supermarket at the moment, the commercial pigs are actually all like large white, cross with landrace or or variations of similar, and they're often quite lean, which is mass market dictates lean pork, but my customers just don't want lean pork. So, and also because I make a lot of the charcuterie products and things, you know, you need the fat, and you need to make quality charcuterie. You need the right kinds of fats from you need back fat for one thing, belly fat for another, and stuff like that. So, yeah. So mine are Hampshire crosses, and I've got I had a boar called Bonzo. My daughter's favourite song was Bonzo Goes to Bitburg by the Ramones. So when we bought our boar, we called him Bonzo, but then he got so big, he was doing his business with the ladies by just standing over them. You know, and as much as I laughed, I thought it's about time he left. So we sold Bonzo to another farm who had bigger pigs than we've got, and he's having a very fun time on that farm now. But we bought a different kind of boar, because Bonzo was he was a mix of absolutely everything. I think he had Tamworth, and he had Gloucester Old Spot, and he had Duroc. So we'd have like some ginger pigs, black pigs, white pigs, a right old mix. And it's actually, I quite liked it. It's quite good for photos and that, because they're really cute. But now we sell a lot of pork. It's quite important to try and get it right, as opposed to cute. As unfortunate as it is. But every now and then I still go and steal a piglet, because I've seen about 1 billion pigs in my time, and a piglet still never stops being cute. Cutest things in the world, and my daughter loves them as well. So here you can see a natural hog casing. So that is an intestine. It's been taken from a pig, washed and flushed. I think they salt them too. They're definitely salted for storage, because I rinse clean all the salts off when I start with them. So I opened this one like a week ago, and this is like I'm so disorganised. If you go to a proper butcher's, not me, they have them all on lovely little loops, but I hate that, and I take them off the loops. And then when it gets stuck, I just cut it off. I can't be bothered. So yeah, so this is how we do the sausages. I've waffled on for long enough. Here we go. We turn the handle. I like to stick a bit of meat out the end. You ever had a bit of meat at the end? Nah.
My memory serves me well.
Let's see if your memory serves you well about what I'm about to do, because, yeah, that's about right, isn't it? Can't get it on. It takes ages, doesn't it? That kills a moment, doesn't it, really? Anyway, so you slide that on. It takes intense wrist action.
Very good at it.
Go faster, go slower. There we go. Volk. Here we go. So these skins are slightly wrong for my machine. You'd have like a longer spout. But I really like this. You can buy different like sizes, and I forget the actual numbers, but I think these are 36 and 38 diameter they're called. And I like the size of sausage that comes out, because the size of sausage is really important, isn't it? Still put it on.
And is that purely dictated then by the size of the casing?
Quite often, yeah. Natural, yeah. It's the way it goes. Yeah. Sometimes you have to really force it on. What's that, sorry?
Is it quite a hard process to get that casing?
No, not really. I mean, it depends on. I have like a butcher's like a business I deal with, who I buy the supplies from. They're called DL. It's spelled Dal-Z-L, but they're called DL because I'm not pretentious or something. But
It's been quite a lucky process.
But that's what I mean, yeah.
my apologies, I understand the question. Yeah, so they will buy from somewhere else. So what happens is when something's stored at the abattoir, someone basically turns up and gets all the bits. So like the blood will be collected for your black pudding. Not even in this country anymore. I think there might be rules against it now. But abroad, I think they still collect blood. Skins, hides, everything. Everything's used. Even down to certain things for medicines. I can't even remember the specifics, but nothing's wasted. Absolutely nothing is wasted. But yeah, alright, there you go.
What happens to bones?
Bones. So, bones are treated. Well, I deal with a company called Advanced Proteins, and they basically they just incinerate them into a powder. And they use them for like proteins and things. So everything's used. It's like, I don't know what they do with it, but it's definitely, there's a whole massive business around it. They take stuff, make it into like a protein. I wouldn't be surprised if it's used for things like fertilisers and stuff like that, but I'm not sure of the actual road it goes down. But it's quite regulated. We have to sign dockets. But I don't really get many bones. Most of what I sell is on the bone and things, so I don't really have to deal with them very often, which is quite nice. But you do occasionally get dead livestock or things which I have took away, and you can't just dispose of that. You have to have that done properly. It's like a door. So we do those.
They still use pig hide for tattooing practice?
I actually don't know. But pig hide comes with the pig, so I'm assuming that's just bought from a butcher's. So when you take a pig to an abattoir, they're actually like what's the best? They're almost like scalded, it's a horrible word, but they're dipped in a tank which opens up the skin pores, and then they're almost just shaved because pigs are hairy. But when you get your pork back, it obviously has a skin on, doesn't it? So pork isn't skinned at the abattoir anyway. So pig tattooing might just be spare hide from produced, that kind of thing.
I was learning, and apparently it's the closest thing to human skin to learn.
Yeah, I bet it is. I can believe it as well. We've got pig hearts in people now, haven't we? So that doesn't surprise me at all. But yeah, again, nothing's wasted though.
Apart from the oink.
Apart from the oink. Oinks are never wasted.
They sell them in the pet shops.
What's that, sorry?
They sell them in the pet shops, the snouts.
Yeah, pig's ears, for the dogs and things. Yeah, everything. I mean, I still get the head back, and you can make like guanciale out of the cheek, which is really cool. You just cure it. And then if you ever had like a properly made carbonara, that uses guanciale pig cheek. So you just salt it, cure it. I think they use things like oregano, maybe thyme, just a mixture of herbs, and you salt it down, and then it cures it, and you just dice it, and it goes all fat and stuff, and really nice. Guanciale. Right. Who's ready to see a sausage?
Yeah.
Yeah. Always. Right, so turn the handle. We fill the skin.
Did you tie a knot in it?
No, I didn't. Some people do, some people don't. I'll give you the lowdown in a moment. Before I sort of just do the job, does anyone want to actually have a go? Turning.
Maria does.
Go on in, Maria. Have you ever handled a sausage before? That's all right then. You will have to wash your hands afterwards, but don't we always? So, this way, let me just give you a quick show. You'll turn it that way. Can you see it's pushing in that direction, like that? And what you need to do is you need to have your hand just gently cupping the sausage. All right?
More hands up, yeah.
It depends on what you like, really. That's it. So get that. And what you'll feel the sausage pressing against your hand, and if you turn at the same time, it will suddenly just go.
Yep.
I'll pull it a little bit for you as well. Just all right, can you see? That's coming out now. And if you go backwards slightly, that's how you stop it coming out.
Okay.
See? Right, carry on if you like.
So if it's small intestine?
I don't actually know which one it is. I think it might be small because I think large is quite large, isn't it?
I'm just thinking
Actually-
big sausages in the larger.
I'm actually not sure.
Yeah, probably the small intestine because that's usually the longest part.
It starts to come out like this a bit thinner. You can ease up a bit. I've made it quite wet today because, like I was saying, I had to bring water with it. Normally it might be slightly drier, so you can adjust by pulling on it or let as well. It's sort of like in multiple ways you can sort of adjust the pace that it comes out with your hand turned as well. See what I mean? So if you think it hasn't filled the skin as much, you can ease off and pinch.
Yeah.
But if you think it's coming on too quick, you can ease off a bit and let it. See? It's quite straightforward. Yeah, there you go.
Don't want to be selfish if
That's
any
all right.
ladies want to have a go.
Anyone else want to have a go?
Yeah.
Go on then. You knew you would. I'll cut this one as well so you can start fresh. So, like I was saying, you're going to have a little bit over the edge. You sort of want to hold that. You're sort of using this to guide yourself, pinching and releasing as you need to. And that handle turns that way. Yeah, so just again, cup the sausage please. That's it, and go. So you can feel like if you held it and turned the handle, it will fill up more, and if you don't do that, it will fill up less.
Yeah.
See? But like I was saying earlier, these are slightly wetter than I normally make them. So if I make, it happens sometimes on the farm, you get the water wrong, or, you know, you've got to remember pork's a natural product. Sometimes it'll be drier, sometimes it won't. How's it feeling in your hand?
It's feeling bigger.
It's feeling excellent. That means you're doing it right.
Excellent.
That's it. It's very wet though, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
There we go. Keep going. How's that feel?
Yes.
You seem to have naturally made really big, thick ones. Excellent. Does anyone else want to have a go? Or is everyone else? You done? Round of applause for the ladies. So I just want to make. I'm just very, very conscious of making a mess in here, so I don't want to. I'll cut these over this bowl here for us. Okay, like that. So we've got a few more to make. So what I'll do, I'm just going to get my tray, and I'll lay these on the tray. So the flavour I'm making you today is they're called Old English. They're just like a plain pork sausage. They're our most popular. Most people buy these. I think a lot of my customers have children and they want sort of like plain non-spicy. So who says about tying knots? So I do tie knots. Some people do, some people don't. If they ever came out this wet by accident, I definitely would, because if you hang them in the fridge, you just slip out. So if you hang these if you can imagine hanging that up, eventually gravity will just slip that out. So, and you never want your sausage to unexpectedly slip out. Okay? So I'll tie a knot in those. A lot of butchers don't, and it's seen as like but I've always done it just because. Sometimes you do get pockets of air build up, and when you hang them, which I can show you in a moment, I just go around and pierce if there's any like air pockets, that sort of thing. And I've always got more sausages to make, so if it's the funny end, I can always create enough space to tie a knot. I just don't like to waste the pork. It's happened in the past. I've gone down to the fridge in the morning, it's all fell out. You know, it's a waste of time, isn't it?
How do you make them smaller sausages?
So thinner or shorter?
Shorter.
I'll show you in a moment.
Yeah.
So what you would do is to make them shorter, you literally just link them shorter, which I can show you now. So if you're ready, I can show you some linking.
Yeah.
Okay? So, should I do some big and some small?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so should we start with the big sausages?
Definitely.
Okay. So, you need to gauge in your mind the sort of sausage size that you require. And think of it for a little while. And then just decide by pinching it first. That's the kind of size, if you bought them from me, that I make them as, like that. I don't have a particular reason for that, that's just by eye. I don't measure it or anything like that.
Do you model them on anything?
Me? No, I'm far too old for that. But if I was modelling on anything, no, sorry. Sorry, I meant that. Anyway, so then what you're trying to do with the next pinch is you're trying to match it. You don't want to make them even, you want to make them neat. So roughly there. You say it's about the same? Yeah? And then you need to do a third. Like that. Because that is going to fold over the top. Like that. Can you see?
Yeah.
So I'm going to link that over and I'm going to tuck it back through itself. Like that. And then I'm going to try and match it by pinching the next sausage here to line up with this groove there. Like so. And I'll do a little half turn and then back over the top.
So it's just pinching and
Pinch, twist. So again, I'm feeding it back through, gauging if I think it's about the right size, about there. And the next one, I'm gauging about that. And I pinch it again, twist, put it over and through. Like.
How long did it take you to do?
Some people might do it differently. I actually don't know, if I'm honest. It's like tying knots and things. I've always tied knots. I was taught by a master butcher called Brian. He's dead now, and he was retired when I met him. And he's the kind of guy that said, if you reach out by the side of you and you don't feel wood, you're going to have a good day. That was his motto. That's what he said to me every single day. And he used to crack me up, amongst other things, which I won't repeat because he was a bit terrible at that. But Brian knew his stuff, and he taught me to tie meat the way he was taught post-war by a German chef. And once you do things away, you just can't undo it. So I honestly haven't got a clue if I make them right or not. I really don't know. In fact, a lot of it is just, do they make sausages? Yes. Do you make them fast enough and efficient enough? Yes. But some people might, I've seen some people, I think, make them on a table. Some people just go along and pinch them. But, it doesn't really make sense to me. But this one here, you can see I've got a funny end, big sausage at the end. You can either make that into 2 small ones if you want to, like that, by going back into your link, or you can keep it as one big one and try and just pinch it up like that. And that would hang in your fridge, you see? Like that.
So why isn't it don't come undone when you cut them?
When you cut them, they will. So if I was training these up now, I'd want to be a bit careful, because if I cut that, then the whole link might go. But what you're normally doing with sausages, you're either going to put them in your butcher's fridge, nice like that, and it doesn't really matter if they fall apart, does it? But if you're going to tray them up, same reason. You're going to tray them all up onto trays anyway, so it doesn't matter if they fall apart. But the meat itself, once you've hung this in your fridge for a day or two, let it set, let it dry. The fans in the fridge will sort of solidify it slightly. And you've got to remember, this has been out of the fridge now for an hour or so. It's still really cold, but put it back in the fridge and it gets colder, chill down, and things will set a bit harder. So that's the case with these. So if I could make, did you want some small?
Yeah.
Yeah? So just the same, but you just want to say to yourself, if you ever buy chipolatas, by the way, that's lamb casings, which I do make on my website, and but they would be like a mini nozzle, and they're half size. So
Yeah, smaller casings.
Smaller casings. So they're called, people call them chip skins, but they're actually lamb intestines. That's exactly what they are. So for a small one, you just want to see to yourself, what do you gauge as a small sausage, like that? Would you say small, about there?
Yeah.
They're harder to make if you've done the skin tighter. So the longer they are, the easier they are to pinch. The smaller they are, the more they bunch up. Because also you've got to remember, you've got to go over and back through. So there's only a certain, you'll get to a stage where they're so small you can't make them. So like if you were going to say, well, I want to make them this size, I mean, that's not going to work, because you can't do the link. But if you're going to do that, you could do that, get strings, tie either side and snip like you're making a chorizo hoop. If you wanted to do that, you could. Or you could just tie them tight with a little string, just like that all the way along, hang them, let them set, then cut them off, put them on trays or put them in the freezer or whatever. You could do that, but that's not the traditional way of doing it.
How did you make sausages before refrigeration?
Well, most of the time people just make them themselves, but a lot of the time they'd be cured ones. So, traditionally, chorizo hoops, salamis were made in the kitchen in winter, hung above the fires, and they last. All the germs are out of them, they're all dry, ready to eat. So you make them in summer when it gets a bit cooler, and then you have it all for winter. So it was a way of storing meat. And a lot of people used to have a meat safe. So you'd have what looked like a little, you might see like little cheese boxes with like wire on the front. My house at home, which is now my dining room, was the dairy and the farm. And it used to have no windows or anything. It was like a box room with all hooks hanging up. And it was the place of the house that got the least sun in the day. And even to this day, you go in there, it's the coldest bit in the house. And they used to, in the winter, make the bacons, hang them up, on the hooks and stuff, and just let them dry in there. But a lot of the time, places like in Spain, Austria, Switzerland, Germany, those sorts of countries, all like that, and Alpine countries and things, they've got a rich, and Italy as well, so they've all got real rich histories and traditions around them because their climate's perfect. Because if you buy a special fridge to make dry curing like products like chorizo, your fridge will be replicating the humidity and temperature of Spain or Italy. And a lot of the time that's just perfect. Not too damp in the air for mould to grow and the ingredients and the cures and things. So that's how they used to do it. Sausages, this is probably more of a modern invention, really. I would say the traditional bag is probably not that traditional. So I'll make you some smaller ones. Has anybody got any more questions?
What's it called? It's not a hand, is it? What's it called?
This?
When you get a bunch of sausages.
I think it's called a bunch of sausages.
It's got a name.
I'm not actually sure. I just call them a link.
Link.
Link. Anyone else know the answer?
I don't know where I got hand from. That's hand of bananas, isn't it?
Hand pork. So a hand, like a pork shoulder.
Ah, right.
Or if you're measuring a horse,
Yeah.
depends on what you're doing. But
How many sausages would you normally have in the link then?
3.
Yeah.
I try and do 3, and a batch is usually about 60,
Right.
something like that. I aim for about 60. Someone said, how many sausages are in a batch? I go, about 60. If I get a bit overexcited and make it massive, I maybe 4. So yeah, we've got, make some smaller ones then. So we've got pinch, pinch, pinch. What you're trying to do is make 3 sausages to start it. Can everyone see okay? Yeah. So first off, you're putting one over and through, and that's going to create, if I put it all the way through, I'm ruining my technique, but I can show you what it's achieving. It's achieving that first little link. Okay? So that's what you're trying to do, is get the little bundles. The main reason for that is you want them to just create the shape. Also, if you'd found a way of pinching them with, I don't know, something else, they're going to take up 3 times the length, and you're going to have 3 to snack. So a lot of this has been probably designed around efficiency, what people want, and ways to create the product that people are wanting. So most of them go, do you know what, I've been hanging sausages like this, like a nut job, and cutting them, maybe we should just do this. I bet that's how most things in this world exist, because it's easier. And so you go through, gauge the size of a smaller sausage, pinch it there, and you twist to create 2, and then thread it back over, pinch to make the 3rd, and you tuck it back through like a tie, really. Like that. And you just, because they're quite chunky, it's harder to make them small. But if you didn't really care about, like for example, if I cut this off, let's just make a mess. Let's just go mad. It's Monday. If we cut that off, then you've got that free space at the end. So like if you were making small sausages, but you don't mind if a bit of stick comes out the end, you can go, well, actually, that's the last, I want that one, there, tuck it round, like that, and then you could say, finish the last one off by pulling the end out and tying it up like that, and putting that back into making to your next batch, like that, and that's absolutely fine as well. See, they're all a bit smaller, you see? So then you'd...
Is there a reason why Cumberland sausage is done in a swirl rather than...
Well, that's a traditional thing. And again, it's probably more likely how sausages would have been. So what they'll do, do we make a Cumberland sausage? So, don't normally get laughed at very often, but... Oh, it's very wet. So quite often a Cumberland sausage is going to be more likely like this. It's also how they make the, like a boerewors. You heard of those? South African sausage? Is that boerewors?
Heard of it.
South African. So it's like a South African seasoning. It usually uses beef, and we're talking everything like sinews and minced up to a pulp. South Africans love all that. But in this country, you'd either make a Cumberland ring, which is essentially that. If you can imagine that without the rest of this, that bless you. You're excused. I have that effect. And so that'd be a Cumberland ring.
Was it your sausage?
No, that's not the first time that's happened. And so a Cumberland ring can also be like if you twirl it up, like this, like that, and effectively get a skewer. I don't know if you can you all see this? It's hard to see here. Like a snail, or a Play-Doh snail, like that, and you'd do it as tight as you dare, so it's neat. And then you'd you'd put a skewer through it, and then they'd barbecue it, just as like a big, like you said, snail shell. Yeah, and that's really cool. So there's 2 ways they do that. Cumberland's just like a traditional, it's actually protected seasoning flavour. I can't remember the particular ingredients, but we buy, like the origin protection. Cumberland has that. So, yeah. Pardon? Someone said.
Mark of origin, like feta cheese. They make feta cheese in Yolks, but they can't call it feta cheese.
Correct.
because it's made in
So
Yolks.
there's loads of, so there's like, there's a certain Roquefort, there's Stilton, everyone's very, very fussy about where their things come from.
So does Cumberland mean the spices or the shape?
Spices.
But
But traditionally, they would have probably had Indian shapes. So I think a lot of people associate the shape with Cumberland, but actually, it's the flavour. You can do whatever. No one's going to tell you off for making these in this shape. But the flavouring, if you said I've made a Cumberland sausage, it has to be Cumberland style sausage.
seasoning.
Seasoning.
Seasoning, not shape.
Correct. So I actually do make Cumberland sausages. I've got some frozen ones tonight. So I make it using the official mix, if you like.
But in sausage shape.
Correct. I don't make them like this. Ironically, no one wants them. I used to make them like this for a long time, just because I thought it was cool, because I like to do things the right way. And actually people are like, well, no, my kids don't eat that. Or not really that, but they just want normal sausages, but they like the flavour.
It's a lot of sausage.
But in all fairness, I did some Cumberland rings before, but again, people are like, not enough. So it's sort of like, it's a real, people on the barbecue might do this, for a few people, and then you cut it up.
Yeah.
But that, again, it's a bit weird, isn't it? We're not used to sharing sausages, are we? So, so this one, that's a Cumberland sausage like that. And we'll finish this off a little bit, shall we? Is anyone else going to have a go before we finish the mix off? What I might do is I might fill it back up with the remains, but it does squirt out a little bit, because it's not going to be a full mixture. It's going to be half mixture, which means it might just hit you. So yeah, look out.
You've got a bit of spillage.
A bit of spillage. Oh, it's such a messy job, isn't it?
Why is it some sausages burst out of their skins
Fat.
when you fry them?
Fat content usually. It usually just like erupts it.
Yeah.
It's usually the sign of a fat
So
sausage.
should you prick the skin before you fry it?
You don't need to. In fact, if you prick the skin, it'll just encourage it to open more.
Yeah.
Like, you used to have to do that, didn't you, years ago, because they were made on these machines. Whereas now, I cut the sausages that I make are open each end. You don't need to. You don't need to do it anymore. It's just another way that we became sort of used to something that was really mass made and actually not right. We were just expected to pierce it.
Sometimes the skins are really thick and horrible.
Yeah,
Is that because of the collagen skins?
that's actually more likely to be the natural hogs. So natural hogs are, my tip with these is cook them enough. If you ever cook a sausage and it's only just cooked, they'll be a bit rubbery. But if you cook them so they get a lovely brown, or not black, but really quite well done, they'll have a lovely brittle snap. Collagens are just designed to be consistent, and they'll usually just bite and snap quite easily. Whereas these, again, natural products, they will vary too. But my experience has been cook them, don't be afraid to make sure they're well done.
Yeah.
And then they'll be brilliant, they'll be like crisp almost, like a lovely snap.
And you can't get that in an air fryer. They always seem tougher in an air fryer than they do in a frying pan.
I've never even used an air fryer, but I mean, I would just roast them. I always oven roast. No, I always oven roast a sausage. If you put it in an oven at about 200 degrees, uncovered with a little bit of water in the bottom, and it'll do all the work. Just if you want to, you can turn them. You don't want half to poach and half to roast. You only want a little bit in there, and hopefully a bit of fat will come out, and you can keep shaking it. You want it to be almost like like if you oven chips and they get that lovely brown.
Yeah.
And you're sort of shaking them, stop them sticking. You sort of want enough liquid to make sure they don't stick, but that's it. You're not wanting the liquid to cook them, you just want it to stop them sticking. And the oven is much more consistent with its heat distribution than a frying pan. Effectively, you're cooking half of it and turning it over. And then again, you might more risk it breaking too, because you're picking it up and messing with it. Right, you ready? I'll go easy on you. This is sort of an example of what I was saying about when we stuff it at the beginning to make sure no air goes inside, because it can. Is it? Let's go in. You're really steady on it. Because it's quite a wet mixture, it's not as bad as if it's quite sticky, because the sticky creates more air pockets. Whereas this is more likely to have less. So yeah, right, okay. I think you're safe. No, you're never quite safe, but safe enough. Okay. So yeah, well, it's still trying. That's not what you want. There you go. So I always have to shut my eyes, I'll do this bit. Here we go. Right. There we go. So if that happens, you can either just write it off, start again, or you can go back to the beginning where you start like that and just think, well, I've got some sausage meat for later or something like that. When you make sausage, there's inevitable side sausage. There's inevitable side sausage. Before this finishes, is there anyone else who'd like to go? Or is there anyone who'd like to link them? Yeah, come link them.
I'll probably fail.
Oh. Does it matter?
Directly behind you.
Tonight, my love, you choose. There we go. I'll finish it off for you then. We'll get to linking up. So I'm quite lazy with it. When I go fast like that, I do all my adjusting as I go. So if there's air pockets, most of the time I sort of just, that. But you don't do it anyway, don't you? Right, so I've tied the knot in it for you.
Thank you.
But don't be embarrassed, because I cannot tell you how long it took me to do it.
What time not?
Yeah, to tie the knot. This is on camera, I'm not supposed to be talking about that. I tied the knot years ago. So, do you want me to show you again and undo it? Or do you want to, can you remember?
I can't remember.
Okay, do you want me to show you one more time?
Yeah.
So, first off, you're making 3.
Three, right.
But as you can see, it's wet, so it's sliding back into each other. But 3, and then that's the first one that's going to go through there, and then you're just going to carry on doing that. Do you want any more, or do you want to carry on? Sorry, start at the beginning. There you go, it's all yours. Excuse me. So 2, and then making a 3rd.
I like the look of that vein down that way.
Oh, Christ. Look, you don't need to look. That's it. Lovely.
3. So that
3.
one goes
Over.
there.
Straight through. And all you're doing now is replicating that again. So essentially, that's exactly correct. Doing exactly right. That is just twisted on itself, so ignore that. So carry on the way you were. So now, what you want to kind of do is you've got the first link made, like that, and you're almost suspending the next one on your hand, like that. And then you're going to be pinching, can you see?
Yeah.
Round and over again. Just mind that big vein, you'll be fine. I've undone it for you now. Undoing them undoesn't work. Okay, so you're there. So you were there, weren't you? Yeah?
Yeah.
So that's there.
Have I pulled through?
So there. Pull through. So the first one, which is, do you mind if I hold your hand?
No.
The first one is suspended.
That's where it should start.
Or I need a guide. And then you want that to be pulling through. Like that. And then you almost want your hand to be doing that. Holding that. That's going to create the next sausage there. And then that one will go over the top. Like that. See?
I'd have to do them in 3s, I think.
Like
You
that.
made it look so easy, didn't you?
Like that.
Yeah.
And like that.
Right.
So now, if I start you there, if you get your left hand and hold that in suspension, all you then need to do is go over, and you're going to tuck that through, and then just replicate. Keep doing that. So you want that. So you want it to sort of be resting on your hand. Tuck it through. Go on, jerk it through. That's it. Very good. Yeah.
Slippery little critter.
They are slippery.
Left hand. Where's my long one gone?
It actually makes so many sausages, isn't it?
Yeah. So 5 kilos approximately makes 60 good sausages.
Yeah. That's impressive.
sausages, can't they? Yeah, they're long sausages, but
Yeah, you know, she's definitely, you've definitely got the knack for a long one. It's twisted that way. That is an annoying inevitability. They just, because of the motion you're doing, it's naturally doing this the whole time. It's pulling the skin round thing. That's it. You made it all come out the end. Well done. Excellent. You did it. Perfect.
You hold them up to heaven.
There we go. Everybody, well done. Yeah, so we'll have some big sausages to sell. But lovely, excellent. You clear up. That's, I think that's the sausages made there. And like I said, sausages don't take very long to make. They're very quick to make, especially when you're used to doing it. But there's a lot around them. There's a lot of story to them. There's a lot of things that, you know, no one really knows about them. So it's really cool. I'm just going to finish these ones off. So pinch, you're doing 3 over itself. Tuck it back through. Rest on your hand to create the next one. Pinch it over. And twist. That's the third. And this is going to come to an abrupt, weird end. So I want you to tuck it back on itself and create like a link of sort of 4, just to tidy it up. And we're going to have a little mini nobble to finish it off, which I'll just end up cooking for myself. No one wants it. There we go. So there you have it. We have different levels, sizes of sausage. They come in all shapes and sizes.
How long would they last in the fridge now? If you,
A week.
So
Easily.
Yeah.
So I would normally hang these up for at least a day to dry, and then I would probably put 6 to 7 days on them. So they probably last a bit longer. Usually, in my mind, the shelf life is 7 days entirely. But like for myself, I sometimes just keep them a bit longer. But shelf life, I usually put 7 days on. If especially if you know it's all really, really good and fresh. But a lot of the time, sometimes on sausage you're safe just putting 5, and then like for my customers at the shop, for example, I used to put 5 days on most things because I knew 2 days of it being in their fridge at home over, it would still be alright. Because you know the last thing you want is something to be barely okay on its last day, so we always used to do that. But there we are. Sausages.
do you have any call for halal or kosher meat?
Not really.
Well, I suppose you wouldn't have kosher.
No, well, I mean, kosher, I could have kosher lamb, I suppose, and goat. But no, the abattoir I deal with do have a day of the week where they do it. So if anyone wanted like lamb or goat, they do. But no, really. More often than not, the people that want that kind of thing already know how to get it. That's what I thought. The only thing I have that it's a bit harder to get is goat. I mean, a lot of people can't get goat that easy, so I get a lot of people ask for goat, but I won't kill it halal. I'll kill it normal. So they end up not wanting it anyway. But I'm you know, it's not something that's I'm not really a fan of it. So I'm not like an activist, but I wouldn't do it myself. It's not as in my opinion, the humane practice of how we slaughter them normally in this country is what our customers want. And actually, how something is slaughtered, the humanity of it is a massive deal, not only to sleep at night, but for the flavour too. And actually, I think you can undo all of your ethics, your hard work and your produce by killing it wrong. So that's one thing that you get in this country. If you have it slaughtered properly and buy British meat, actually you're guaranteeing that's been done properly.
It's stressed and slaughtered, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. In fact, there's calls for more like mobile abattoirs because depends on how you want to look at it. So ethics reasons, you could say the fact that they're killed on site is so much more humane. That's box number 1. Box number 2 is sustainability reasons, just food miles, travelling. Have to take them to an abattoir, a whole other place, and so there's all the diesel, all the costs involved with the food miles. And then you've got the third issue really, which is what's the third one? Sorry, we've got food miles, sustainability. Yeah, the taste. So if you don't care about the other two things, the taste is better. In fact, if you've ever seen meat with spots in it, blood spots, that's stress. So blood spots in meat is a sign of stress. Now, it's still possible to get that. You know, I'm not saying anything we would ever sell, it's impossible. It's actually more common if you've eaten game, you get it in deer. Things like they've been shot, not shot properly or died quickly or humanely, and then they'll get those stress spots. So if you have anything killed or slaughtered here, it's done in a way that uses stunning, like electrical stunning, so it's instantaneous and it doesn't affect the quality of the meat, there's no stress, and obviously it's very efficient, and they never have any moments of waking or anything like that. It's quite I think the biggest problem is we don't talk about that kind of thing enough, and I think we're all really distanced from it, and it's really, really difficult because if you eat meat, it's something we need to all accept, and it's not like we're some sort of overlords that never die. You know, we all get eaten eventually, and I've always been very, very keen on saying, well, it's going to happen to every single thing on this planet, so we've got to do it right. You know, that's what we've got to keep eating meat with the right meat and the right quality and the right ethics and sustainable practices and making sure it's all done right. Because there's going to come a time where everyone does come back to meat and realise that it's quality, not quantity in meat. Like, the problem with meat isn't the environment and things. It's not your local farmer producing meats. It's the meat you don't realise you eat. You don't even realise it. You know, most people say I don't really eat pork, as an example, but in fact, every sausage, every bacon, every chorizo, every pizza, every ham sandwich, we eat it all in different ways. You don't even realise we're doing it. You don't even realise we're eating it. And chicken's another one, such a throwaway product now. Chicken. And it was such a posh, expensive product, you know, back in sort of even as early as the 50s. It wasn't that long ago. And we've become used to getting whatever we want all the time. And that's fine. I personally quite like seasonality of things, and I think that's quite a cool thing. But that doesn't happen anymore, and that's fine. But as long as we're sort of doing it right, then if we're going to do that and want everything when we want it, it's got to be right. And a lot of the time, you know, we can just go to a petrol station on the way home tonight and buy a ham sandwich. It's ridiculous. At 10 o'clock at night, it shouldn't be anything. And we're all spoiled for it, aren't we? And we don't even realise. Yes.
So when you go to your local butcher, can we assume the sausages would be non-halal, or do we have to ask?
I would assume they'd be non-halal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of the
Especially if they're pork,
sandwiches that Alphas produce for school packed lunches and so on, they are halal.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realise they're eating halal products in M&S and so on.
It has to be labelled.
Yeah, it is labelled.
Yeah, halal meat has to be produced a certain way and labelled legally.
Yeah, okay.
You've got to know to look at the label, haven't you? That's
Also,
it.
it's usually different colours in supermarkets.
Is it?
Yeah, it's more like purples, like traditional colours that in different sections next to it, but...
Yeah. So my opinion on it is we've got a huge community in this country who eat halal foods, and I think that's absolutely fine. And I appreciate that people are going to do that, and I don't really think there's anything wrong with it. But it's one of those things where, you know, a lot of my customers just wouldn't want it. But if time comes and you have a lot of people who are making the choice to buy the best quality food, and you might have to, it's a different thing. But also, I think a lot of, like you were saying, it is choice, being able to see it clearly labelled, and, you know, it's someone's choice to eat things a certain way. And it's tough that so much exists in food, that actually, food's such a simple thing. It's so easy and normal, but it's all been completely changed with modern society in such a way we're completely distanced from it. Completely. And people aren't comfortable with the processes and what happens. And, you know, I try to make it not fun, but like open. And, you know, I'm not some sort of weirdo. Well, I might. But I see things from both sides, and I understand why people might not like something or might not want to know about it. But what I try to do is say, well, if you want to know about it, I'm here, kind of thing. And but it's a really, especially things like the way something's slaughtered. It's a big topic.
It costs more to produce as well, so I work with retail catering people as part of my job. and we had somebody asking that to have halal or kosher, if you go to a canteen in a business, they won't have a halal or kosher, so they have to have a separate kitchen to produce those items. They won't do it as a matter of course.
I've heard this about kosher before. I didn't know about halal. I didn't realise that was the same.
Yeah, you have to have a separate kitchen, and it has to be. It's like if you're a vegetarian. Some vegetarians don't like. Yeah, some vegetarians don't like anything cooked in the same kitchen. It's the same, but legally to certify it as halal or kosher, it has to be a separate kitchen. And if you're buying in pre-made sandwiches, there's quite a large premium on halal or kosher sandwiches.
Really? That's incredible, isn't it?
Yes,
sorry. You've been picking up loads of times.
Do you slaughter your own pigs then? Or do you...
No, I take them to an abattoir. So the place I deal with sometimes buy pigs from me, or goats or lambs. And it's a small, it's like a family business, still run by two brothers and a sister. But they do all the slaughtering there, because it's observed by like the ministry and the vet. So it's quite like, well, it's actually, it sounds a bit more strict than it really, like, you know, when I first started taking animals in, there's people with special hats and coats, and I was like, oh my God, am I doing it right? You know, it's highly regulated.
Okay.
You know.
Does it upset you taking your animals to be
Now, sometimes, I've got a goat called Chumpy, and essentially the rule of thumb is we try and keep the females and we try and sell the boys, and the boys are castrated, so they don't try and, hunt the sister, basically. But we often do quite well at growing the herd by keeping the females, and we change the bucks in time. So when they're born, we will go through ones and we'll castrate, and we'll mark one tag for a boy, two for a girl, so we can separate them by eye. But Chumpy is a boy, and he was a bottled baby. His mum didn't produce enough milk. And if you go on I'm not just trying to get you onto my channels, but I've got pictures of Chumpy on YouTube. And he's such a character. Now, pigs are quite characterless. They're intelligent, but they're quite samey. Sheep are quite, like the term, like sheep. They do the same things. But goats are more like dogs. Goats, I've got 50 odd mums, and each one's got a personality trait a bit different, and you sort of. But then, so Chumpy, I'm trying to sell him as a pet. Because I most of the time, no, because I'm very comfortable with it. I have made my peace that, in fact, if I raise something and I've took it in, nurtured it, and I've been really kind to it, but I'm prepared to eat meat and accept it, I would rather kill it myself. And I'm not allowed to slaughter things. I do poultry and turkeys, which I do, and we carry the chicken to slaughter. They're not like strung up or anything like that.
Okay.
So I'm quite, you might say I'm a softie, but it's very important to me that it's done right.
Yeah.
And I think it sounds really crazy to say it, and we need to get away from these conversations, because it's actually, I'm completely right. I take pride when I'm eating my own produce, because, like I said, if you choose to not eat meat, that's one thing, and you take yourself out of that industry, and I appreciate that. But if you do eat meat, like I do, and I know my family should eat meat for their health, that I really like the fact that, like last night, we had 3 things on my plate, like vegetables and meats and things are all from the farm. And it's not there broadcast to show off or be hippie-like, it's because it's right.
I mean, I eat meat, but I think if I had to kill it myself, I probably wouldn't.
It's really, really difficult. And when I first killed poultry, it was a strange feeling. Because when you kill something for slaughter, there's obviously things you learn, like they still sort of like move with the nerves for a little while, and all these things. But when they're done with a stunner, they don't do it as much. You can use, if you haven't got a stunner and you've got less than 50 birds, you can use like what's called a neck breaker. It sounds really, really brutal because it literally just breaks the neck. But in all fairness, it's incredibly humane, because if you know what you're doing. So like I for my whole adult life could kill poultry by hand in a second.
I've seen it done, because when I was a child, we lived in Cyprus for a while, and we lived in a village before we went on to the campsite. And the next door neighbour, first of all, she fed us this rabbit that we'd been going around petting, and made us feel all very ill. And then the next time we looked out, she kept chickens and they were all running around with their heads down there somewhere. And we were,
I've never understood the people that, I've heard something put a chicken and just cut its head off, and it's just going to go wild.
yeah,
Just flies around.
Oh, it just was frightening.
It's a really difficult topic, and actually, the amount of doorsteps I've stood at with my customers, I've been delivered in the meat box, and I end up standing here like this for like 10 minutes chatting, and they dabble in this a lot. People, I'm not saying you need to go and get your hands dirty. I don't necessarily think that's the thing, but I think that respecting it, understanding it, and being okay with it.
Well, to be fair, I was still eat chicken. But,
Yeah.
you know, it was quite frightening seeing these chickens running around with no heads.
But that's also sort of like done the wrong way.
Yeah.
So, if you went to an abattoir that killed chickens, you wouldn't even notice. If you come to...
next door neighbour, the lady next door, she was just
whack.
fucking-
Yeah. But like now, it's so regulated.
Yeah.
It's completely different. But it's a really tough one. And, I've brought my children up to not be blasé about it, but to be very, very respectful about it. And meat never gets left on a plate, anything like that.
Have you got any vegetarians or vegans in your family?
No.
No. So you've
No.
never made
No, I
any
chucked them out years ago.
You've never been asked to make vegetarians?
I've had, I've made plenty of veggie dish, but we used to have like some vegan customers, vegetarian customers. Some of my staff members were as well. But I'm also trying to, I'm quite easygoing about it. Like, one of the biggest problems at the minute is there's actually a big divide with vegan against meat. And they've got meat guys all being, hating the vegans and drinking a pint of milk in veganuary just to undo it. And I actually think there needs to be some sort of coexisting, because as far as I'm concerned, you do what you want. If you want to be a vegan and you think that's what you want to do, whatever, don't really mind what you do. But I'm going to do what I'm doing. And actually, I used to have a lot of customers who were vegans or vegetarians, who were just the same as me. They bought meat for their children from us. So they would go like, well, I don't eat meat, but my children need to. And they would go, where's the best place I can buy meat from? And they'll come to us. That kind of thing. And I would always respect that too. Like, some people just don't want to eat meat. And I get that. I don't really... it's really difficult, isn't it? Because you don't want someone shouting down at you going, oh, you've got to eat meat and all this, and be some sort of like crazy person about it either. Because it's a choice now, and we can choose what you do, as far as I'm concerned. Whereas we're here, we represent what is the best version of, and it's here if you need it, and the information's there too. I think transparency is a lot of it. A lot of people have come back from vegan being sort of more flexible because they've realised they sort of crave or have been wanting meats or a little bit more than they used to or something like that, or they might have it once a week because it's a certain nutrient dense cut of meat or something like that. But we noticed a trend years ago where our customers would buy less meat but quality meat when they did, and that was actually what happened a lot. We had that more often than not. So we would have like I'd have a customer who buys something once a month and they'll probably have 2 meat dishes a week and they'll freeze it, and that's all they'll have. And 3, 4, 5 days a week they'll eat vegetable-based meals or something like that. And I think actually, that's a really cool way of doing it. You want the meat and you're enjoying the meat. It's not like about having the meat just for the sake. People are buying the pieces of food they really enjoy. For me, there's no point eating something if it's not my favourite thing. What's the point? I'm not eating for the sake. So, like, if I want a piece of meat, I want a proper piece. Something I'm going to go, wow, that's lovely, every single time,
So do you have a lot of customers who are carnivores?
Some, but not just particularly.
No, I've got a son who's a carnivore and a daughter who's vegetarian.
I've heard a bit of that, but generally, I'd say more recently, I'd say it's a lot more balanced. We had a spell, I'd say the vegan boom the last 10 years, we've had some proper, angry emojis on my Facebook page, constantly, whereas it's all sort of starting to taper off a bit. I think there's a few here and there, but generally it's actually doesn't seem to be as a bigger, it seems to balance out a little bit. There's I think there's a bit of I'm hoping some coexisting going on because it makes life a lot easier.
There's fridge walls in our house.
But again though, it's one of those things where, if my kids did that, I'd be like, you do what you do, but don't criticise your brother. vice versa.
It's just you put meat on my shelf.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and it's a hard one to sort of say, isn't it? So, but we always sort of say about the importance of eating vegetables anyway, don't we? And I would never eat just meat, so we're not like ridiculous with it, and I'm not sort of like greedy with it. Like meat comes with a meal, you know, whereas you get some people eating ridiculous. Again, it's the other way. It's a bit like I was saying earlier about the meat you don't realise you're eating, but when you go to when you buy like a rack of ribs at a ribs restaurant, how many pigs worth of ribs are there? Where's all the other cuts? Where's that all gone? You know, we shouldn't be able to buy 1,000 racks of ribs. It's not. That's 500 pigs. It's crazy. Why does that exist in the world? But it does. You know, so you know, if you go to places like in France and things like that, it's all sort of like everything's used. You know, people wouldn't dream of having just like the breast on a chicken and not eating the rest.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point to make that. Yeah, you go to these restaurants and it's just the same thing.
It's obscene. We don't realise when we go to Nando's and we have a Nando's chicken breast, there's thighs and wings, and yeah, sure, Nando's said a bit of it, but they're not buying in chickens and boning them out, are they? They're buying in breasts, they're buying in wings, they're buying in legs, or KFC or whatever. Those chickens have got to be created, bought, slaughtered, cut, packaged, transported, checked, cleaned, cooked, thrown away when they're not sold. It's obscene. You know, if you go into a takeaway like KFC, there will be inevitable, well, that's been on for 5 minutes, can't have that anymore in the bin. It's obscene. And I'm not saying right or wrong, because I don't know about you, I've had KFC before. You know, we're all guilty of it. But I think in a small way, we can all sort of think about it. There's times I go, that's just ridiculous, I don't do that anymore. You know, and you just like, and it's not about, like you're saying, it's hard, isn't it? Because in society, you're seen as taking a side. And actually, I'm in the camp of, you know, if you just change one thing, you know, no one ever succeeds by changing their entire life. But if you go, right, instead of me buying that, I'm going to buy that. And then before you know it, it starts creeping into your other things. And you start going, that's a bit weird. Yeah, I wonder what I did that for, or whatever. And it just, you know, before you know it, it does become part of your life, doesn't it? And I think that's the problem. We don't think about food enough. As the fact that it has been alive.
It is a life.
It's a life that we're just having bish, bash, bosh onto our plates every single day. Whereas,
it's a really valid point, and I think we're going to have to wrap up in a minute.
Sorry, I don't shut up.
Brilliant. No, it's been absolutely brilliant. It's really fascinating. If everyone can just give a big thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
As usual, we've got a cake at the back, and then don't forget, feel free to take anything from the top table. Lovely. Thanks very much.
That's all right.